Previously on the Billionaire who became a chapati seller to find true love. He came to village to find his true love whom he found, and after they've been living a simple life, then his uncle Mr. Emeka came to take him back to town to run his business, but he refused because he wanted to stay with the love of his life. So we are diving into our part 2 of the story. So subscribe, share and like this video. Let's dive into it. With Mr. Emeka gone, Ochike decided to start a new life in the village with Amara. He bought a small piece of land and built a modest house with the help of the villagers. He continued making chapatis at his cart, and soon everyone in the village and the nearby towns knew of the man who gave up everything for love. People came from far and wide to taste his delicious chapati and hear his story. The business was booming, but this time Ochike felt different kind of happiness and joy of honest work and true love. Amara helped him every day at the cart. They laughed together, worked together and dreamed together. Their love grew stronger with each passing day. One day, Amara noticed she was feeling different. She felt tired and dizzy, and her mother noticed she had a certain glow about her. Mama Nkechi took her aside and asked, "Amara, my child, could it be that you are expecting?" Amara's eyes widened with surprise. "I don't know, Mom," she replied, her heart racing with excitement. Mama Nchike smiled. "Let us go to the midwife and find out." The midwife confirmed the news. Amara was going to have a baby. She was overjoyed and ran to tell Ochike. When he heard the news, he laughed and hugged her tightly. "This is the best gift I could ever received," he said, tears coming from his eyes. The news of the baby spread through the village like wildfire. Everyone was excited and came to congratulate the couple. The women offered to help Amara with her chores, and then men promised to help Ochike build a bigger house for his growing family. Ochike felt blessed beyond measure. He had found everything he ever wanted: love, happiness, and now a family. But little did he know, a new challenge was about to come his way. One evening, dark clouds began to gather in the sky. The air was heavy and the wind blew fiercely through the village. Everyone hurried to their homes, sensing a big storm was coming. Ochike and Amara were at their little house, preparing dinner. As the first raindrops began to fall, Ochike looked out the window. "It looks like a strong storm," he said, worried. "Let me go outside and secure the chapati cart." Amara nodded. "Be quick, Ochike. The storm is getting worse." Ochike ran outside, fighting against the strong wind and heavy rain. He tied down the cart and covered it with a trap. Just as he returned to go back inside, a loud crack of thunder shook the ground and lightning lit up the sky. He ran back to the house, drenching but safe. Amara welcomed him with a towel, and they sat close together, listening to the storm raging outside. "I'm glad you're safe," Amara whispered. Ochike smiled and held her close. "As long as I'm with you, I'm always safe," he replied. The storm lasted throughout the night, and by morning, the village was a mess. Trees had fallen and many houses were damaged. Ochike and Amara's home was mostly intact, but the roof had few holes. The villagers came together to help each other. Ochike quickly joined the men in clearing the fallen trees and fixing roofs. Amara helped the women preparing food for everyone who needed it. The villagers were grateful for Ochike's help. "You have truly become one of us," Papa Obina said, patting her on the back. Ochike felt a warmth glow in his heart. We are all family here, he replied, feeling more connected to the village than ever. Few days after the storm, a stranger arrived in the village. He was a tall man with serious look, and he carried a letter in his hand. He asked around until he found Ochike. "Are you Ochike?" the man asked. Ochike nodded. "Yes, I am." The man handed him the letter and said, "This is for you. It is from the city." He turned and left without another word. Ochike looked at the letter, his hands trembling. It had a seal of his uncle, Mr. Emeka. He quickly opened it and began to read. Amara watched him closely, noticing the worry on his face. "What does it say?" she asked, her heart pounding. Ochike's face turned pale. "Uncle Emeka is very sick. He wants me to come to the city," he said softly. Amara's heart sank. "Will you go?" she asked, fearing what is the answer he might give. Ochike sighed deeply. "I don't know, Amara. I need to think about this." That night, Ochike couldn't sleep. He laid awake, thinking about his uncle. Mr. Emeka had always been harsh and demanding, but he was still family. Ochike remembered how his uncle had raised him after his parents passed away, giving him everything he needed. Amara sat beside him, holding his hand. "If you feel you need to go, I'll understand," she said softly. "Promise me you will come back." Ochike turned to her, his eyes filled with emotions. "I promise, Amara. No matter what, I'll come back to you." Amara nodded, her heart inching at the thought of him leaving. "Then you must go and see him," she whispered. "He's still your family." Ochike kissed her forehead. "Thank you for understanding," he replied. "I'll go and return quickly." The next morning, Ochike packed a small bag. The villagers gathered around to say goodbye, wishing him a safe journey. "Come back soon, Ochike," Papa Obina said, shaking his hand. "The village will miss you." Ochike smiled. "I'll miss you, all of you," he replied, "but I promise I won't be gone for long." He turned to Amara and hugged her tightly. "Take care of yourself and the baby," he whispered. Amara nodded, holding back tears. "Come back soon, my love," she whispered. With a heavy heart, Ochike left the village hoping he would return soon. When Ochike arrived in the city, he was surprised by how much he had missed it. The noise, the crowds, and the bright lights. But he quickly pushed those thoughts aside and went straight to his uncle's house. Mr. Emeka was lying in bed, looking sick and tired. He opened his eyes when he saw Ochike and smiled weakly. "You came," he said softly. Ochike nodded. "Of course, uncle. You are still my family," he replied. Mr. Ochike sighed. "I've been wrong, Ochike. I was angry that you left everything behind. But now I see that you were right to follow your heart," he confessed. "I'm old and sick. I need your help to run the businesses." Ochike felt torn. He wanted to help his uncle, but he had promised Amara he would return soon. Mr. Emeka continued, "If you stay, I'll give you everything. The businesses, the house, all the wealth. You must promise me to stay in the city." Ochike's heart pounded. He had always dreamed of running the family business, but now he had a different dream. A simple life with Amara and their child. He thought carefully and finally spoke. "Uncle, I cannot stay here forever. My heart belongs in the village with Amara. But I'll help you until you're well," he said firmly. Mr. Emeka nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Ochike. I understand," he replied. "You truly have a good heart." Ochike smiled. "I'll make sure everything is in order, but then I must return to my home." As Ochike stayed in the city, He began to fix things in the business. He worked hard just like he did in the village. And soon the business was running smoothly again. He called Amara every night, promising he would come back. One day, Mr. Emeka made a surprising announcement. "Ochike," he said, "I have decided to sell the business and move to the village with you." Ochike was shocked. "But uncle, are you sure?" he asked. Mr. Emeka nodded. "I want to see the place that changed you, the place where you found true love, and I want to live my remaining days in peace." Ochike felt a wave of happiness. "Then let us go together," he said, smiling. Ochike and Mr. Emeka returned to the village together. The villagers were surprised to see them both, but they welcomed Mr. Emeka with open arms. Amara ran to Ochike, tears of joy in her eyes. "You are back," she cried, hugging him tightly. Ochike laughed. "I told you I would come back," he replied, kissing her forehead. Mr. Emeka looked around the village, feeling the sense of peace he had never known. "This is a special place," he said softly. "I see why you chose it." Amara smiled. "Welcome to our home," she said warmly. The villagers threw a big celebration to welcome Ochike and Mr. Emeka. There was dancing, singing, and delicious food. Mr. Emeka laughed and danced with the villagers, feeling happier than he had had in years. Ochike and Amara stood together, watching everyone celebrate. "This is the life I want," Ochike whispered to Amara. "Simple, happy, and full of love." Amara nodded, her heart full. "I feel the same," she replied. "And now we can share it together with your uncle too." Few months later, Amara went into labor. The whole village gathered outside the house, waiting anxiously. Ochike stayed by her side, holding her hand, his heart pounding with excitement and worry. After what felt like hours, a cry filled the room. The cry of the newborn baby. The midwife smiled and announced, "It's a baby boy." Ochike felt tears fill his eyes as he held his son for the first time. "He's perfect," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Amara smiled, tired but happy. "We did it," she said softly. The village celebrated the birth of the baby with joy and music. Ochike and Amara named their son Chinedu, which meant God leads in their language. They knew that their lives had been led by something greater than themselves, something that brought them together and blessed them with love. Mr. Emeka held the baby in his arms and smiled. "This is the future," he said softly. The village embraced the new family, showering them with gifts and good wishes. Ochike and Amara's home was filled with laughter and joy as they began their new journey as parents. The village became their extended family, supporting them and sharing in their happiness. With Mr. Emeka now living in the village, he found solace in the simple life and began to understand the values Ochike had discovered. He helped Ochike with the Chapatti card, learning to appreciate the hard work and satisfaction that came from it. One day, Mr. Emeka said to Ochike, "I see now why you chose this life. It's not about wealth, but about love and community. I'm grateful for the chance to learn this." Ochike nodded, feeling proud. "I'm glad you understand, uncle. This village has taught me more than I ever learned in the city." Ochike and Mr. Emeka decided to open a small shop selling various goods that the villagers needed. They used the money from the business sale in the city to help fund it. The shop became a vital part of the village, providing much-needed supplies and creating more jobs for the villagers. Amara continued to run the Chapatti card, and Ochike often helped her. They were happy with their new roles, blending with their old lives with the new ones. The baby Chinedu was always the center of their lives, bringing joy to everyone around him. One day, a young girl named Neka moved to the village with her family. She was curious and kind-hearted. She often visited Ochike and Amara's home, quickly becoming friends with little Chinedu. Neka admired Amara's cooking skills and asked her to teach her how to make chapati. Amara agreed, and soon Neka became an excellent cook, helping out at the cart and learning valuable skills. Ochike noticed how happy Neka was and thought about how much the village had given him. "It's wonderful to see new people finding their place here," he said to Amara. Amara agreed. "The village has a way of bringing people together," she said, smiling. The village organized a grand celebration to mark the anniversary of Ochike and Amara's arrival. There were dances, songs, and feasts that included chapati made by Amara and Neka. The village was vibrant and lively, filled with joy and unity. Mr. Emeka stood before the crowd and gave a heartfelt speech. "Today, we celebrate not just people who have come into our lives, but also the love and the community that binds us together. I have learned so much from this village and from Ochike and Amara." The villagers cheered and clapped, raising their glasses in a toast. Ochike and Amara looked at each other with knowing they had found something truly special. As the years went by, Ochike and Amara continued to live a happy and fulfilling life. Their son Chinedu grew up surrounded by love and kindness. The village became a place where dreams were nurtured and love was celebrated. Ochike often thought about his journey from a wealthy businessman to a chapati maker, and finally to a beloved member of the village. He realized his true wealth was not in money, but in the relationships he had built and the love he had found. One evening, as the sun set over the village, Ochike and Emeka sat together watching Chinedu playing with his friends. Ochike turned to Amara and said, "We made the right choice, didn't we?" Amara smiled and took his hand. "Yes, we did. Our life here is everything we could ever hoped for." Ochike nodded, feeling contented. As the stars trickled above, Ochike, Amara, and Chinedu felt a sense of peace and happiness. They had found their true home, and their story was of love, sacrifice, and the joy of simple living. And so, their journey continued, filled with hope and the promise of the bright future. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for stopping by. This is the final episode of our story. It has been an amazing story. We learned a lot from the story, guys. We learned a lot. Everything is not all about money. Money can step aside and you follow your heart. So we see this man from being a rich man, a billionaire, to a chapati maker just to find true love and happiness. Can you sacrifice that for the love of your life or anything that you think it is worthy? Can you do that? Can you put money aside and do what you want, what you feel that is right in your heart? So I believe that you've enjoyed it. Leave something in the comment section. Just let me know what you think. Can you do what this man did for his love? Bye bye. See you in my next video. I love you all.